Welcome to the Badass Women of WWII. I'm Lydia, and today on episode 2, we're talking about Elizabeth Wall Strohfus. Elizabeth Betty Wall Strohfus was born the 15th of November 1919 in Faribault, Minnesota. She graduated high school in 1937 and started working at the Rice County Courthouse, where she met a local member of the Sky Club who offered to take her up for a ride. Her love of planes was ignited. She put her bicycle up for collateral, borrowed $100 from the local bank, and joined the all-male Sky Club. And there she volunteered in exchange for a chance to fly. She soon got her pilot's license and joined the Civil Air Patrol. The second Betty heard about the WASP program, she applied. And at just 21 years old, she was on her way to Sweetwater, Texas, where she trained at Avenger Field and earned her silver wings. She ferried military planes and helped train air and infantry gunners at Las Vegas Airfield. And just like Millie in episode 1, she towed a large fabric target behind her plane for gunnery target practice. Betty flew 8 different aircraft, including the B-26, P-39, one of my personal favorites, the B-17, and her favorite, the AT-6. When the WASP program was disbanded in December of 1944, Betty was not ready to give up her time flying, and so she applied for a job at Northwest Airlines. Did she get that job? No, because according to Northwest Airlines, women didn't fly commercially, you silly goose. The first woman to fly for a major commercial airline, Bonnie Taberzi, wouldn't break that barrier until 1973. Instead, Betty went to air traffic control school in Kansas City, where she did get a job, but found it lonely and didn't stay long. She took a few other jobs, but eventually went back home to Faribault, where an old boyfriend reached out. Arthur and Betty were married. They had 5 children in 5 years, and while raising those children, Betty worked at the courthouse, volunteered with the Cancer Society, and participated in the American Legion Auxiliary events and activities. In 1976, Betty traveled to Washington, D.C. with a handful of other WASPs when newspapers started reporting that women were flying military aircraft in Panama, and they were the first in history to do so. The WASPs went to set the record straight. Betty fought hard to get recognition for the WASPs, and on November 23rd, 1977, they were finally granted veteran status. In 2000, Betty was inducted into the Minnesota Aviation Hall of Fame. She was also awarded 2 Congressional Gold Medals, one for her service as a WASP and one for her service in the Civil Air Patrol. When Betty was 72 years old, she asked the military if she could fly an F-16 as a co-pilot, and they granted her permission to do so. She took over controls mid-flight, and according to Betty, I said, "I'll just do a gentle turn." I did 6 Gs. He said, "Take it easy. I don't have a brown bag." I said, "You can take mine. I don't need it." Betty died March 6, 2016, at the age of 96. I'll leave you with a story from her that pretty much sums up how much she loved flying. At the end of her time flying the BT-13, a friend from back home flew down in his Cessna to convince her to marry him. After some thought, she agreed and went to find her commander to resign. He expressed regret at losing a pilot as skilled as Betty and requested that she set the resignation aside until she'd had the chance to fly the AT-6. She went up in the AT-6, she landed, and she immediately called that boy and said, "I'm not going to marry you, I'm staying." So what was flying like for Betty? In her own words, "It was love at first flight for me. I knew I had to take up flying."